I'm standing in front of Judge Morrison's bench, and my hands won't stop shaking. Not from fear, from 3 years of rage I've kept bottled up. The bailiff just asked me to state my relationship to the parties involved. Your Honor, I say, my voice steadier than I expected, the plaintiff is my younger brother, Marcus. The defendant is his business partner of 22 years, Richard Chen, and I'm here because someone had to document the truth. Marcus shoots me a look from across the courtroom. He doesn't know what I'm about to do. Richard's lawyer smirks, probably thinking this is just another character witness rambling about their client's supposed integrity. They have no idea what's coming. Let me back up. You need to understand how we got here. 25 years ago, my brother Marcus had a dream. He wanted to open a chain of hardware stores across the Pacific Northwest. Not the big box kind, the old-fashioned type where people actually know your name and can tell you which screw you need for your deck project. He'd been working construction since he was 19, saved every penny, and by 35, he had enough for a down payment on his first location in Tacoma. But he needed a partner. Someone who understood business, could handle the books, manage inventory. That's where Richard came in. They met at a Chamber of Commerce mixer. Richard was a CPA, charming, and had family money he was willing to invest. He talked about building something that mattered, about legacy, about being more than just profit margins. Marcus ate it up. Within 3 months, they'd signed the partnership papers. Chen and Thompson Hardware Supply. 50-50 split on everything. I remember the opening day of that first store. Marcus was so proud he cried. Our mother had just passed from pancreatic cancer 6 months earlier, and I think part of him felt like he was honoring her memory. She always said he had a gift for helping people. Richard gave this beautiful speech about partnership, about trust, about building something together that would outlast them both. I never liked Richard. Something about his smile didn't reach his eyes. But Marcus was happy, so I kept my mouth shut. The business grew. By year 5, they had 3 locations. By year 10, 7 stores across Washington and Oregon. Marcus worked 16-hour days, managing crews, meeting with suppliers, handling customer complaints. Richard handled the finances, payroll, insurance, all the back-end operations. Marcus trusted him completely. That was his first mistake. It started small. Things I noticed that Marcus was too busy or too trusting to see. Richard's wife upgraded from a Honda to a Mercedes. Then they bought a vacation home in Cabo. Richard started wearing Rolex watches and taking international trips, always calling them business development opportunities. Meanwhile, Marcus drove the same Ford F-150 he'd had for 12 years. He and his wife Sarah lived in a modest 3-bedroom Rambler in Kent. They'd planned to upgrade once the business was more established, but somehow there was never enough profit to justify it. We're reinvesting in growth, Marcus would say when I asked. Richard says we need to keep capital reserves high. Year 15, I started asking harder questions. I'm a retired accountant myself, spent 30 years with the IRS before I took my pension. Numbers are my language. Marcus, I said one Thanksgiving, you've got 10 stores now. You're pulling in what, $8 million in revenue annually? About that, he agreed. So where's your money? You and Sarah should be comfortable. You're still working 6 days a week. He shrugged. Richard handles all that. He says we're building equity. The property values alone. Have you looked at the books yourself? Why would I? Richard's the numbers guy. That's why I brought him on. That conversation haunted me for weeks. I tried to let it go. It wasn't my business. But then Sarah called me, crying. This was December of 2021. Tom, she said, I'm worried about Marcus. He wants to retire in 5 years when he turns 65. But when I asked Richard about our retirement accounts, he got defensive. Said everything was tied up in the business and we'd have to wait. Wait for what? That's what I asked. He just said the timing wasn't right to liquidate assets. Tom, Marcus has worked himself to the bone for 20 years. We should have something to show for it. That's when I decided to look deeper. I started casually. Asked Marcus if I could see the corporate tax returns, told him I was curious how they structured things, might have some advice. He emailed them to me without hesitation. First red flag. Their tax returns showed profit margins of barely 4%. For a hardware supply business with 10 locations, that was impossibly low. Industry standard should be closer to 15 to 20%. Second red flag. There were consulting fees paid to an LLC called Pacific Rim Advisors. $200,000 a year? I searched public records. Pacific Rim Advisors was registered to Richard's wife, Jennifer Chen. Third red flag. Company credit cards showed charges at restaurants, hotels, and golf courses Marcus had never visited. When I asked him about them, he said, "Oh, Richard handles client entertainment. Not really the whining and dining type." I felt sick. I couldn't just tell Marcus. He'd defend Richard, maybe even get angry at me for snooping. I needed proof. Undeniable, ironclad proof. So I did something I'm not proud of, but don't regret. I told Marcus I was bored in retirement and asked if I could volunteer at the main Tacoma location a couple days a week. Help with inventory, chat with customers, stay active. He was thrilled. What I really did was position myself to access the business operations. I became friendly with Linda, their bookkeeper. Sweet woman, mid-50s, who'd been with them for 8 years. One day, over coffee, I mentioned I used to work for the IRS. "Oh, you'd probably have a heart attack looking at our books," she laughed, but there was something bitter in it. "Why's that?" She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Between you and me, some of Richard's expenses make me uncomfortable. But he's the CFO, so I just process what he tells me to." "Like what?" "Like $50,000 for market research paid to a company I can't find any record of. Or the company credit card charges at jewelry stores and luxury hotels. Marcus never asks questions, so." She shrugged helplessly. That's when I knew I wasn't imagining things. I went to Marcus that night, told him gently that I had concerns, that maybe he should audit the books, bring in an outside accountant. He got defensive. "Richard's been my partner for 20 years, Tom. He's as invested in this business as I am. You're being paranoid. Just look at." "No, I'm not going to insult him like that. He's like a brother to me." We didn't speak for 2 weeks after that. It nearly killed me, but I realized I had to do this differently. I contacted a forensic accountant I used to work with at the IRS, Paul Mendez, told him the situation. He agreed to take a look off the books, as a favor to me. "If there's fraud here," Paul said, "you'll need documentation. Lots of it. And it needs to be obtained legally." That's when I started my 3-year project. I became the model volunteer. Showed up early, stayed late, made myself indispensable. Linda started trusting me with more responsibilities. Eventually, she gave me read-only access to their QuickBooks account so I could help her reconcile inventory reports. That's when I saw everything. Richard had been embezzling for at least 15 years. Maybe longer, the digital records only went back that far. Here's what he'd been doing. First, the consulting fees to his wife's LLC. Those were pure fiction. Pacific Rim Advisors didn't advise anyone on anything. It was just a pass-through to funnel money from the business to his personal accounts. Second, he'd been taking loans from the corporate account. The loan documents existed, but they had no repayment schedule. No interest, nothing. He'd taken out $1.7 million over the years and paid back maybe $50,000. Third, company credit cards. He'd spent $600,000 over 15 years on personal expenses. Jewelry for his wife, vacations, car payments, even his kids' private school tuition, all coded as business development or client entertainment. Fourth, and this one made me physically ill, he'd been underreporting revenue. Some of their wholesale contracts paid directly into an account only Richard had access to. He'd been skimming 20% off the top of those payments before the money ever showed up in the main business account. In total, I estimated Richard had stolen somewhere between $3 and $4 million from my brother. I documented everything. Every transaction, every fraudulent loan, every fake consulting payment. Paul helped me organize it into a forensic report that would hold up in court. But I still couldn't just hand it to Marcus. He'd have to see it in a context where he couldn't deny it, couldn't be talked out of it by Richard's smooth words. Then opportunity knocked. In August 2024, Richard announced he wanted to dissolve the partnership, said he was ready to retire early, move to Costa Rica. He proposed buying Marcus out, offering him $2 million for his 50% stake in a business I now knew was worth at least $12 million, probably more. Marcus called me, excited. "Tom, Richard's offered me $2 million. That's more than enough for Sarah and me to retire. I'm thinking of taking it." I almost threw up. Richard was trying to steal everything, right at the finish line. "Don't sign anything yet," I said. "Please, give me 2 weeks. "Why?" "Just trust me. 2 weeks. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and pay for your retirement party myself." He agreed, suspicious but willing to humor me. I called Paul. "We're running out of time. What do I do? You need to bring this to light in a way that protects your brother legally. If Marcus signs that buyout, he might not be able to undo it later. What if we filed a lawsuit first? Would that freeze things?" "It would. You'd need Marcus to be the plaintiff, though. That was the hard part. I had to convince Marcus to sue his best friend without showing him all my evidence first. If I showed him everything at once, he might confront Richard privately, and Richard would destroy records, transfer assets, disappear. I set up a meeting. Me, Marcus, Sarah, and Paul. I told Marcus I'd hired a forensic accountant to review the business, just as a retirement planning favor. Had Paul present his preliminary findings just enough to raise red flags without revealing the full scope. Marcus went pale. "This can't be right." "It's right," Paul said gently. Sarah started crying. "I trusted him," Marcus whispered. "I know," I said. "And that's why we have to do this correctly. We're filing a lawsuit. Tomorrow. For breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and dissolution of partnership under proper accounting. It'll freeze all business assets until a judge sorts this out." Marcus looked at me with this broken expression. 22 years, Tom. 22 years I trusted him. I know. We filed the lawsuit on September 3rd, 2024. Richard's lawyer immediately tried to dismiss it, called it frivolous. Claimed Marcus was just having cold feet about retirement. The judge assigned us a hearing date the 14th of January 2025. The next 4 months were hell. Richard turned half their mutual friends against Marcus, said he was being manipulated by his jealous brother, that I'd always been envious of their success. Marcus had to keep working alongside Richard, pretending everything was fine while lawyers exchanged discovery documents. I kept gathering evidence, every email, every bank statement, every receipt. Paul and I built a case so airtight a first-year law student could prosecute it. Richard's lawyer kept offering settlements. First $4 million, then $5, then $6. "Take it," they said. "Avoid the embarrassment of a trial." But I knew what they were doing. They wanted to avoid the forensic accounting that would happen during the trial. If a judge ordered a full audit, the criminal fraud would be undeniable. Richard wouldn't just lose the civil case, he'd face criminal charges. I told Marcus to hold firm. He trusted me. That meant everything. Which brings us to today. Judge Morrison's courtroom, the 14th of January 2025. Marcus's lawyer presented the forensic report. Showed the fake consulting fees, the fraudulent loans, the personal expenses. Richard's lawyer tried to claim these were all legitimate business expenses, properly documented, that Marcus had approved them all implicitly by not objecting. "Your Honor," Richard's lawyer said smoothly, "Mr. Thompson had full access to all accounts. He could have reviewed these transactions any time in 22 years. His failure to do so doesn't constitute fraud on my client's part." That's when the judge looked at me. "Mr. Thompson, the older Mr. Thompson, you've been sitting quietly this whole time. You're not a party to this lawsuit. Do you have something to add?" I stood up. Marcus's lawyer had prepared him for this, but Marcus himself didn't know exactly what I was going to say. "Your Honor, I'd like to present additional evidence, if the court permits." I've spent the last 3 years documenting my brother's business operations. With his permission and with proper legal guidance, I've compiled records that I believe show systematic, intentional fraud. Richard's lawyer jumped up. Objection. This is highly irregular. I'll allow it, Judge Morrison said. Approach the bench. I walked forward, pulled a thumb drive from my pocket, and handed it to the judge's clerk. This drive contains 3 years of financial records, photographs of documents, email correspondence, and a complete forensic analysis performed by Paul Mendez, formerly of the IRS Financial Crimes Division. It details approximately $3.4 million in embezzled funds, spanning 15 years. The courtroom went silent. Richard's face drained of color. He leaned over to whisper furiously to his lawyer. Judge Morrison looked at the drive, then at me. This is extensive documentation. Yes, Your Honor. I'm a retired IRS agent myself. I know what evidence looks like. I also know that what Mr. Chen has done isn't just civil fraud, it's criminal embezzlement. Multiple felonies. Richard stood up suddenly. This is insane. Marcus knew about all of this. Sit down, Mr. Chen, the judge said sharply. But Richard didn't sit. He looked at Marcus, his face twisting. You ungrateful after everything I built for you. You built? Marcus's voice cracked. I worked 80-hour weeks while you golfed in Scottsdale on company money. Your Honor. Richard's lawyer was scrambling. We request a recess to review. Denied. Judge Morrison was scrolling through files on her computer, looking at what the clerk had uploaded. Her expression hardened. Mr. Chen, I'm looking at what appears to be a consulting contract with Pacific Rim Advisors, an LLC owned by your wife. Did you disclose this relationship to your partner? Richard's lawyer touched his arm. Don't answer that. I'm also seeing corporate credit card statements with charges at Tiffany & Co., the Ritz-Carlton Maui, and a Porsche dealership. Mr. Chen, are you claiming these were legitimate business expenses? Silence. And these loan documents, the judge looked up sharply. Mr. Chen, did you ever repay the $1.7 million you borrowed from company accounts? More silence. The judge closed her laptop. I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all assets of Chen and Thompson Hardware Supply. Mr. Chen, you are prohibited from accessing any company accounts, properties, or assets pending a full forensic audit. I'm also referring this case to the Washington State Attorney General's Office for Criminal Investigation. Richard made a sound like a strangled animal. Then he bolted, just stood up and ran for the courtroom door. The bailiff caught him before he made it 5 steps, slammed him against the wall, cuffed him while Richard shouted something about this being a misunderstanding, about his lawyer getting him out. I just stood there, shaking. Marcus was crying. Sarah had her arms around him. The judge looked at me. Mr. Thompson, your documentation will be crucial for the criminal case. I expect you to cooperate fully with investigators. Yes, Your Honor. This court finds clear evidence of fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. The partnership of Chen and Thompson Hardware Supply is hereby dissolved. Mr. Marcus Thompson is awarded full ownership pending proper valuation and Mr. Chen's restitution obligations. The gavel came down. Richard was screaming as the bailiff dragged him out. Something about how we'd ruined him, how he'd made that business, how he deserved that money. I walked over to Marcus. He looked up at me, his eyes red. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry I had to do it this way. He grabbed me in a bear hug. You saved me. Tom, you saved everything. The aftermath took months to sort out. The Attorney General's office charged Richard with 15 counts of embezzlement, wire fraud, and money laundering. His wife tried to claim she didn't know about the fraud, but investigators found her fingerprints all over the fake consulting contracts. She eventually took a plea deal. Richard went to trial. Jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. He's currently serving his sentence in SeaTac Federal Detention Center. The forensic audit revealed the business was actually worth $14 million. Richard had been hiding assets and undervaluing properties to support his lowball buyout offer. Marcus got full ownership. He paid Richard's share of the legitimate business value into a restitution fund, about $2 million, which will go toward paying Marcus back the stolen money once they finish seizing Richard's assets. It won't be a full recovery. Richard spent a lot of it. The Cabo house had a mortgage. The cars were leased. The jewelry, his wife already sold most of it. But Marcus will get at least $2 million back, maybe more. More importantly, he got his business, his legacy. The thing he built with his own hands and sweat. He's still running the stores. Says he'll work until he's 70 now, not because he has to, but because he loves it. Sarah's involved too. She took over the financial oversight. They hired a new CFO with strict audit requirements and quarterly external reviews. Marcus asked me to come on as a consultant. I work 3 days a week now, helping train their management team on financial literacy, making sure everyone understands the numbers. We've got 13 locations now, planning 2 more by 2027. Last week, Marcus changed the name. Thompson Family Hardware Supply. He had his lawyer draw up papers making me a 15% partner. I tried to refuse, but he insisted. You spent 3 years protecting me, he said. You put in the work. You're not a silent partner, you're family, and you're part of this. We put Mom's photo in every store. By the register. Small brass plaque underneath. Built on trust, integrity, and helping people in memory of Patricia Thompson. I think she'd be proud. People ask me sometimes if I feel bad about Richard, if I think 12 years is too harsh, if I regret how it all went down. I don't. He had 22 years, to be honest. 22 years to treat my brother with the respect their partnership demanded. He chose to steal. He chose to lie. He chose to try to take everything at the finish line. I just made sure the truth came out. I'm 68 years old now. I've lived long enough to know that silence in the face of wrongdoing isn't kindness, it's cowardice. Standing up for someone you love, even when it's hard, even when they don't believe you at first, that's what family does. Marcus and I have dinner every Sunday now. Him, Sarah, me, and my wife Linda. We don't talk about Richard much. That chapter's closed. Instead, we talk about grandkids, about the business, about Marcus's plans to finally take that trip to Ireland he and Sarah have been dreaming about. Last Sunday, Marcus raised his beer glass. To Tom, he said, who saw what I couldn't, who did what I wouldn't, who saved everything I'd built. I raised my glass back. To family, to truth, and to building things that last. We drank to that. And somewhere in SeaTac, Richard Chen sits in a cell, probably still wondering how he got caught. Still convinced he was the smart one, the business genius, the one who really deserved everything. He never understood what Marcus and I knew from the beginning. A partnership isn't just about profit margins and growth strategies, it's about trust. And when you break that trust, when you steal from someone who gave you everything, who trusted you with their life's work, eventually, the truth comes out. And justice, slow as it may be, always finds a way.